Okay, so I stopped on the last one. We found the test statistic. I did go ahead and come over here and plotted the test statistic on the same number line where I had the mean of 0 and the critical value of negative 2.33 already plotted. This barrier right here is where the negative 2.33 is. So we know if we keep going along this line right here, we'll get to negative 2.98, somewhere along there. I'm not really worried about where exactly it is. I don't know about the scale or anything, but I do know that negative 2.98 is to the left of negative 2.33. Since it's to the left and everything to the left of this negative 2.33 is shaded, then that means this green dot, your test statistic, is in the shaded section. Now, according to the other page of notes that I gave you, in order to the page of notes, notice that this blue right here, this is earlier up, if you copied it up, the blue section, which is the one that's shaded, the shaded part is always the rejection region. It says reject. This blue, it's pointing to the blue, it says reject. If it's pointing to the blue, it says reject. So if you're in the shaded section is always the rejection region. So anything right here, when they have it written down, that the area right here, this is where we reject. Okay. Now we need to talk about what we're going to reject, because that's the part that it gets confusing. Hang with me, and I promise you I'll get you through this, but this does get confusing because here's the problem. The problem is they ask us, do we have enough evidence to support the claim? That's what they ask us. And you would think it would be really easy. We could say, yes, there's enough evidence, or no, there's not. Here's the problem. This hypothesis test that we're doing, hypothesis testing, we only test the null hypothesis. And the reason that that's a problem is because we only test the null hypothesis, and they're always going to ask us, do we support the claim? And sometimes we only test the null hypothesis. So the results that I'm going to come up with are going to be the results for the null hypothesis. In this case, the null hypothesis was not my claim. So they want me to give them the answer to the claim, and I'm only going to be able to give them the answer about the null hypothesis. Well, that's not exactly true. I just need you to be careful and understand. They're asking me about the claim. My test will always test. This is what I'm testing. So since this is what I'm testing, the first answer that I get, which is to reject the null, that's my first answer. And I came up with reject the null because the test statistic was in the shaded section. That's why I'm going to reject the null hypothesis. So I'm going to reject this statement. So if I reject that statement, then what does that mean I do about the claim? So if I reject that one, you would think I would accept that one. And that's a little, you got to be careful because there's going to be a fill in the blanks in it. So what we've written right here is accurate, but understand we still haven't answered the question. And there is a particular way that we're going to answer the question. And the particular way that we're going to answer the question is to fill in the blank sentence. Okay. This is always going to be your answer. Your answer is always going to be, and we're going to write it there. And you're going to have to figure out, am I going to put the word is or is not enough evidence at, and then you're going to look at your alpha and put your alpha in there. But how do we know if how do we know if it's is or is not? How do we know if it's support or reject? How do we know what these two are? We get these two right here by looking at this table. And yes, I'm going to give you that table. This is your formula sheet for test number 4. And here it shows you the formula for finding your test statistics. This is in 7.2, this is in 7.3, this is in 7.4. Here's one way to reject or fail to reject. Here's the way that we just did. We looked at the rejection region and we failed to reject. I'm sorry, we rejected it because it was in the shaded section. So we rejected it. And now we're going to write the conclusion. And we are going to come back and do this one in just a second. We're going to do it when I use StatCrunch. So I can now come down here and use this table. So you don't have to memorize the table. You just have to be able to use it. So the table says in this particular case, my claim was my alternative. So I come down here, was your claim your null? No. Was your claim your alternative? Yes. So this is the column that I'm looking in. My claim was my alternative. And then what did I do? With the null, I rejected the null. So since the claim was my alternative and I rejected the null, this is going to be my answer. So notice this says there is. So in that first blank, I'm going to write the word is. There is enough evidence at, we're going to put 1%, because you always take your alpha and write it as a percentage. There is enough evidence at 1% significance level to, they tell me, to support the claim that the average pit stop is less than 13 seconds. And that's the answer to your question. And all of this other work is just the support. Okay? See what I mean? It's very involved. You have to write your claim, do your null and your alternative, decide what kind of test it is, draw your picture, find your critical value, find your test statistic, determine whether you're going to reject or fail to reject. Then you use this table right here to figure out which one of these outcomes it is. And it's this right here is always going to be your fill in the blanks. This word changes, this percentage changes, and this word right here changes. And of course, your claim changes. So that's going to be the only thing that's different. Every time this fill in the blank sentence will be your answer. And then you have to figure out what goes there by all this other stuff. Okay, now I'm going to stop the video right here because we've kind of finished this problem, but we haven't finished this problem because I haven't talked to you about, we've just done the rejection region. We did not compare the p-value to the alpha. So I'm going to have to do that one last little bit, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next one.